Matt is trying to get here and just looking for parking. That's what we're thinking. So I'm happy you made it here and found parking, Matt. Really interesting topic today, and we're thinking about compost. So, okay, compost, that's boring. You just throw it in the garbage or you throw it in the green bin and forget about it, move on. But really, that chain effect of once that is thrown out has a lot of different parts that affect our lives. Your staff emailed me, I think, maybe 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, something like that, asking to have a meeting. I'm the acting director of the school environment, and my first question is like, okay, so why me? What's this meeting about? Sure, no problem, let's have a meeting. But it was a really good meeting. I learned a lot from Matt, you and your team, and talking about compost, the issues, the policies, and how how interdisciplinary that is, and how that process is really involved with engineering, biology, microbiology, accounting even. And that was a surprise to me. Not really a surprise, but yes, I was surprised. And this is Matt Keliher, and he's with Halifax Regional Municipality under the Department of Waste Management. Is that right? And I thought he was an engineer. So I did ask, what is your background? And it's accounting. Okay, that's really cool. Really is. So how does an accountant then be involved in this type of business? And your background is a BCom from Dalhousie. Sorry about that. But luckily he got his MBA at the Sobey School of Business here at St. Mary's, so that's okay. That's okay. But, and then you kept adding more, so you have an MPS, a Master's of Public Service, is it, or?
Professional Studies.
Professional Studies, sorry, yes. So, Professional Studies in Economy and Community Development. And that was from Penn State. And, okay, that's great. I've got enough training. No, not. We have certified managed accounting and a chartered professional accountant and a chartered professional human resources as well. And that seems to satisfy the need for that. And now he's been working with Halifax Regional Municipality, and he is originally from the area, but we'll be very careful. He's from Dartmouth, not Halifax, so we'll be very careful. He's like, he doesn't mind being called a Haligonian, but being here, I've realized that I'm very careful with those lines of the two cities. Very excited that you can be here for this very interdisciplinary talk. Very interesting topic, and talking about Halifax, how they process their compost. And we're right now in that consulting period to try and engage the public, the professional industries, experts in the composting system, and see the priorities that we in Halifax and Dartmouth and Bedford have for our compost. And so I'll turn it over to you. I will be clicking forward for the slides. So if there's a slight delay, just excuse me, that's my fault, not his. I will be clicking the slides.
Thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend this education seminar on compost. I'm going to give the same presentation that I've been giving the general public at the Sportsplex on Monday. We had a public engagement session, and we have another one this coming Wednesday at the Forum. But we also have been meeting with a number of stakeholder groups within HRM. So we met with the Ecology Action Centre, Clean Nova Scotia Environment, and we're trying to get in touch with a number of business communities as well, so the Burnside Business Association, to make it a very well-rounded consultation phase. So just a brief agenda, why we're here today, a quick history on the organics management system in Halifax, the current opportunities and challenges that exist right now for the municipality, the goals that we've established through council direction, open the floor up to conversation and discussions about compost and about waste management. Any questions you have, just shoot them along. And ways to provide feedback for my staff in order to deliver it to regional council, in order for council to make an informed decision on the direction that we take based on community and stakeholder feedback. So why are we here? So I'm here to engage St. Mary's, the students, the faculty, but also engage the general public on compost. And one of the interesting things that we're working on now in solid waste with this Compost Matters program is we haven't developed a process on where we're going to go. Like most public consultations right now, you see staff develop the way forward. We then go out to stakeholders in the community and say, this is what we thought of, what do you think about it? This way, we're doing it in the exact reverse. We're going out to the community to see where the stakeholders sit, what the public feels is important, and then we're going to develop a plan and move to regional council for adoption of that plan. So it's a little bit different. So during this consultation phase, we're looking to provide a forum for open communication for all residents and stakeholders, engage in meaningful discussions. We know that there are differing opinions on what we should do, and we want to make sure that we capture all that information in order to give to regional council, in order for them to direct staff appropriately. And one of the interesting pieces that we're working on right now is when we do develop that way forward, we're going to be moving forward with a request for qualifications. So what we'll do is we're right here right now. Everything's on the table for organics management. After we get feedback from the public and from the stakeholders, and we go to regional council, we're going to start narrowing our focus down. So do we go with traditional composting? Do we do anaerobic digestion? Do we compost in Halifax, or do we send it out? Those are some of the questions that we're asking all stakeholders right now, and it'll kind of narrow that funnel down, and then we'll go out for a request for qualifications to find firms that can do the work that HRM is looking for. And then only those firms will be allowed to proceed within the tendering process for the solution. And here's just the IAP2 spectrum of public participation. So our previous engagements in solid waste, and I'd say a number of municipal departments and most governments for that matter, have been inform and consult with residents. So develop that plan and then go out and get information from residents on how they feel about that plan. We're moving more to the right and involve and collaborate with our stakeholders and with residents in order to gain a better insight of what the general public and the stakeholders are looking for in this project before we move forward. So hopefully we're able to get good direction in the buy-in at the beginning rather than trying to look for buy-in in the end, and hopefully this will allow regional council to direct us in the most appropriate way pending review of all the information we received during this process. So just a brief history. Halifax was one of the largest municipalities to collect source-separated organics, and we were the first one to implement curbside collection. That was back in 1998. Right now, we process approximately 53,000 tons of material at our facilities, and our facilities can only handle 50,000 tons. So during peak season, we have to ship some of that material to a third party, and we do a juggling exercise in the spring and in the fall with the leaves. We send out separate trucks to collect the leaves separately, and they get sent to another facility that can process them at a better cost, and also they don't get into our organics processing system at our facilities that are at capacity. So we're constantly juggling and sending trucks in different places almost on a daily basis to make sure that what we receive can be collected and processed.
Excuse me, what does ICI mean?
Industrial, commercial, and institutional, sorry. Good question though. Apartments and businesses, St. Mary's would be one of them. Here's our facility in Goodwood, Ragged Lake. So as you can see, it's got a nice buffer from most community members. It's a lot of trees, a lot of open space. And this facility here is in Burnside on Gloria McCluskey Avenue. And throughout time, that facility has been encroached upon by a number of businesses in the correctional center that have moved around the facility. So the footprint here is very limited in terms of the space that we can expand, whereas the footprint here is, I think we have around 36 acres of land to do any expansion if we need to in the future. So what are the opportunities and challenges that we face right now in Halifax? Well, our facilities are 17 years old. That doesn't seem that old when it comes to buildings, but composting is extremely corrosive, and it does take a lot of repair, maintenance, and upgrades to those facilities to keep them running. And our facilities right now don't meet the new Nova Scotia Environment Composting Guidelines that were established in 2010. That being said, we haven't been given a date when they do have to be compliant, but we're shooting to be compliant sooner rather than later. The facilities at Ragged Lake, so the picture on the left there with all the green space, it can't meet the current processing guidelines. It meets its existing processing guidelines, but the technology that's used at that facility is hard to find. It's hard to replicate, it's hard to purchase. Whereas at the Miller site, the picture on the right side, in Burnside, they can expand their facility, they can add some additional infrastructure at that site to meet the requirements, but of course it's a capital investment. And over 20 years, there's new technologies, there's new processes, there's a bunch of different ways to process organics. It's not the same as it was 20 years ago when Halifax was on that really bleeding edge of processing organics and the technology that was used. So the overall goals right now for the municipality with this program are to minimize our capital and operating costs moving forward, to minimize the impact to the community, so odors and noise, and meet the compost guidelines. And again, we haven't received a formal date when we have to meet those compliance dates at our existing facilities, but any new facility that needs to be built must meet those requirements. And we're also looking at expanding our processing capacity. Right now we generate 53,000 tons of material. What are we going to generate in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? So we're looking at least a 60,000 ton processing facility with the ability to easily bolt on or increase the capacity as needed, rather than in 10 years' time have to go find a third compost site or a fourth compost site. We like to be able to bolt on that technology. So a request for the stakeholder groups that we've met with has been to complete the online survey or complete a survey, to engage with the members of the stakeholder group to ensure that their voice is heard from staff, and to promote the completion of the survey for the community at large. So push that information out to all the residents. For residents, we're asking, become involved. Go on the site, learn as much as you can about the system, fill out the online survey, and give us all your feedback. All your feedback will be incorporated into one document that goes to Halifax Regional Council for their consideration on the way forward. The engagement timelines right now, we've started the engagement in September. We're going to end it December 1st. And we're again asking the stakeholder groups and individual members of the community to fill out the online survey. We had public sessions at the Sportsplex on Monday. We're having 2 more public sessions at the Forum next Wednesday. And we plan to be back to Regional Council hopefully in March with a what we heard document for this engagement, and then direction from Regional Council on a request for qualification, so that funneling it down. So some of the conversation topics that we've had with stakeholders and we're having with the general public are really framed around 4 key themes: the environment, the social context, finances and risk, and the logistics of organics management. So composting, are there different systems? What is composting? So there's regular composting. It's aerobic. It means that it uses air, you turn the material, and it changes, but there's also anaerobic digestion, which it doesn't use any air. It's in an enclosed vessel, and through that process, it can generate gas, which can be cleaned and be put into the system as renewable natural gas, or it can be burnt and put into the power grid as power. Why isn't compost currently available to residents? Well, all of our compost right now is pre-sold to a landscaping firm who takes all of our material, and what they do is they still have to cure it, so another process for around another year in order for it to be useful. And that material right now is put into sod fields, and it's used commercially through that company. Under social context, we're asking the questions: where should the facilities be located? Should they be located where they're at now? Should we move them? Should they stay in HRM? We're really looking for feedback from residents on that. And what should be done with the finished material? Some of the questions that residents have had and stakeholders have had is, why can't we get this material? We should be able to get it. And knowing that that's a goal of residents allows us to go back to Regional Council and frame our composting system so that we can get it back to residents. Or maybe residents just really want to know what happens to it. With the anaerobic digestion process, we can literally have a organics truck that is fueled with organic material. So you can dump your organics in the back, and through the anaerobic digestion process, it creates renewable natural gas, and it will actually fuel that vehicle. But I think knowing that that's the possibility and that's an option is extremely important for residents, but just knowing what happens with the material, I think is extremely beneficial. And one of the big questions that we have right now on the survey is, should more material be allowed in? Should we allow grass back in? Should we allow pet waste in like other communities? Should we bring or allow disposable and biodegradable plastics? So those are some questions that we've posed right now on the survey, and we're looking for feedback from stakeholders and residents because, again, that will help us funnel down the solutions that we're looking for. If the residents really want a lot of grass, or they want grass back in, if they want pet waste in, if they want plastics, then maybe that 60,000 ton facility that we're looking at might have to be 65. So that will really impact the future of the program. What's the cost of processing organics? It's extremely expensive. It's around $170 a ton. So to compare that to garbage, garbage is $150, and to compare that to recycling, recycling is only $55 a ton. And we'd like to move the cost to compost down in order for it to be more economical for the taxpayer and residents in HRM, but understanding that there are environmental aspects to a program. And again, in our survey, we ask residents, should we invest more than just the minimum required by regulation in our system? So should we add additional odor control measures? Should we add additional processing capacities in our system in spite of the additional cost? What if regulations change again? Well, that's what happens to us right now. Regulations have changed. We haven't received a date yet when we have to be compliant, but things in the garbage world do change, and we're working with Nova Scotia Environment right now to determine if there are possible changes to the compost guidelines in the future. Because the last thing I want to do is build a facility and then 2 years later find out that something was on the back burner for changing and we didn't incorporate it. So I'd like to be proactive. That being said, we're not sure if there are any major changes in the systems right now, but we are engaging Nova Scotia Environment to make sure, because that will go back to the cost of processing. If we don't build the facility for the future, then we've got to keep on building on pieces which then cost more. One of the other pieces that ties with risk and with cost is, should there be one site or multiple sites? If we have one site, we may be able to reduce some costs due to efficiencies and economies of scale. If we have two sites, maybe we can reduce some of the risk associated with having just one site. Again, that's a question that we've put to the residents in our engagement process. And then logistics. Should we remain at our current sites, or should we go through a siting process and find new sites? Should we import material from other regions? So right now at our recycling facility, we do have regional partnerships with two municipalities that are close, so Chester and East Hants. We take their recycling. And by us taking their recycling, they see a benefit because now they're paying a less cost per ton in their areas. Their taxpayers benefit. Our taxpayers benefit because our cost per ton decreases and we get to sell that material. So it's a win-win for the three regions. So can that maybe be replicated with compost? We're not sure, but we're looking into it, and that's definitely a question that we've posed to residents, and it's an extremely important feature of regionalization of a system. And I know that Nova Scotia Environment is looking for municipalities to become more efficient, and they're looking for a regionalized approach. But again, if residents of Halifax don't want to accept compost, then that's up to the residents and the council for making that ultimate decision. And should we export material? It might be cheaper to export the material to another jurisdiction rather than process it in HRM. But do the Haligonians and residents of HRM value that we take care of all the waste that's in HRM, or is it just strictly a cost per ton piece? So those are some of the pieces and information we're trying to gather from residents and stakeholders to help us as staff give that information to Regional Council to get direction from Regional Council. So how can you provide feedback? The most important piece of feedback right now is the Compost Matters questionnaire. It's on shapeyourcityhalifax.ca, and we've had just shy of 1,000 respondents so far, and that's almost triple or quadruple what we thought we would get. And we still have another month or so left of consultation. We're hopeful that after this session it will reach that 1,000 mark. We're only a few shy, so get on the website and fill it out. And with that, you can also give us information and feedback on that portal. But you can also email us at compostmatters@halifax.ca because the survey might not have, actually it doesn't have answers. It doesn't have questions for every resident's concerns. What we need to know is maybe there's something that we missed, so please give us that information and we'll definitely look at it and relay that communication to Halifax Regional Council in order for us as staff to make the best professional advice to Regional Council in order to get their direction to move forward. That's it. So any questions?
Just a comment. Yeah, thank you. Just the opportunity here, it's a PD day and all the school kids are running around and they would accept this information just as well as an adult. Because last week I was in Edmonton and they knew more about composting than their parents did.
Yeah, and we promote that through our education program. We go to schools and we really push the education of making sure that materials get put into the right bins. And we know it's tough sometimes, but everybody, when they do their part, it helps out. And as you can see, our facilities are just, they can't handle what we get, which is a good news story, that we have to invest in additional infrastructure to handle all that material, and it's only going to keep growing. So we need to make sure that what we do in this program it fits what the residents want, and it fits our estimates of continued growth in organics management. But you hit the nail on the head. The students are, and kids are one of our main, if not the main target audience that we're trying to get to, because they change parents' behavior too.
Yeah, they're geoscientists. I mean, they wanted to understand why the worms do something or
Yeah.
the gases come.
Yeah, 100%.
I was really interested in that the truck you were talking about potentially being able to, through the anaerobic process, provide the fuel for that. Does that exist anywhere else? Is that actually technology that actually does exist?
It does. So some of our fleet right now, our collection fleet is fueled by natural gas. Some of the big GFL trucks that you see out there, they're fueled by natural gas. And with the anaerobic digestion process, it will create that gas, and we just have to clean it up a little bit with some engineering stuff I don't know too much about because I'm not an engineer. As mentioned, I'm an accountant. But we can take that material and that fuel and fuel those trucks or fuel the buses or put it right into the grid and fuel the electricity needs or the gas needs of buildings. So it is possible. It has been done. It's in Toronto right now through an anaerobic digestion process on Disco Road, and there are a number of processes out there that can create fuel from organics.
Since you're an accountant, what's the tonnage of wood and leaves?
So
For your total 53,000 tons.
Yeah, the leaf portion during the peak season is around 2,000 tons on either end. And most of that is, we know that it's 2,000 tons because we collect that separately and we send it to another facility. But in terms of the general mix, it varies day to day, and we don't have a composition study of everything that comes into the facility, only what we can move out.
So a couple questions I have is, this is talking about how you deal with the waste, but also we seem to have a real problem of people separating properly. So is there going to be something in this program on how you get people to separate properly? And maybe that's not as important as it is. My other question I always wonder is, if you do like a lot of places in the U.S., you just dump all the garbage in one spot, it's going to naturally create methane or whatever. So why separate it, and why not just dump it together and take off what comes off?
So I'll answer the second question first. Why don't we just put it all in one pile and deal with it? One, it's against Nova Scotia law and our regulations. It has to be separated. We can't deliver organics, we can't deliver recycling materials to our landfill, and it's also a commitment we made to the community that we wouldn't do that either, and that's why we have a front-end processor and a waste stabilization facility at Otter Lake, which is extremely expensive, but it does what it does, and it helps give that extra environmental protection. The education piece of the commingling of items, education is key. It's 100%. We have made partnerships with a lot of different organizations, but one of the challenging parts of organics management for some people, especially in the condos or the high-rise apartments, is I don't want to go down with my bin or that kind of stuff. And one of the questions that we do have, and we've posed to residents, is do you want to use biodegradable plastic bags? That might be a way to get additional organics out of the multi-residential stream and out of that garbage stream and into the organic system. We're still waiting on our consultation feedback. We've had almost 1,000 surveys, and I can't really tell you what way it's leaning yet, but that's definitely one way to get some of those organics captured and put them over into the stream. But I know it's difficult in a university setting and a number of businesses where you can just kind of drop and go. So it has to do with education, and we're here if you need any assistance with that. We've got a great team, and we're more than willing to partner on any initiative.
So if I understand your cost rate of $170 for organic, $150 for general waste,
Yeah.
we're better to just pick up the organics that are obvious, the 2 kitchens, and not worry about the rest of it.
In a financial world, it's probably better in HRM financially to put it in the garbage, but we're not doing our environmental stewardship responsibility. We're not upholding to that, and it's against provincial regulations. So that's one reason it's a couple reasons why we do have organics management, and that's one of the reasons why this program, the way we're going to structure it in the future, is going to minimize costs as best as we can, and my goal is to drive it cheaper than garbage.
Sorry, a couple questions. Is anybody doing anything about the
I'm used to it, Gary.
Sorry, okay. Anybody doing anything about the packaging, whether it's the fast food you get or the big plastic wrap toy that my grandkids, by the time it's done, we go from this size to this size?
Packaging's huge, and packaging for the most part makes its way into our recycling system, and it costs taxpayers a lot of money to process every year. We are, HRM and Halifax Regional Council is supportive of an EPR program, which is extended producer responsibility, which shifts some of that burden to the makers of that product. And once that burden is shifted to the makers of that product, maybe they'll make it a little bit differently so then they don't bear the costs. We're working right now with the province on that initiative, and we're waiting to hear back from the province on what direction that they're going to take on that. But there are a number of jurisdictions in Canada, BC, Ontario, Quebec, that have an EPR system, and there's many over in Europe that have it as well. That puts that responsibility back on the manufacturers to change their processes. And if they start bearing the cost of the collecting and the recycling of their materials, then maybe they won't triple, quadruple wrap something and then put it in cardboard just to make sure it doesn't get broken. They might reduce some of that material, which then reduces the footprint that we all have to bear.
I was interested in the model change that you started off with there, the public participation, as opposed to previously when the public was rather reactive, I suppose, to initiative. Now you're asking them to be proactive. Isn't the difficulty, though, in putting the cart before the horse, changing the model around, is that you're only going to capture a certain proactivity, if you like. You're not going to get a lot of feedback from people who aren't particularly concerned or particularly involved, or quite frankly are quite happy with what's going on. You're really going to get the negatives coming through, or at least people who are active in the community in some way. So therefore, you're not really going to get at least from my point of view, I don't think you're going to get a representative sample of what the public's feeling about all this stuff.
I'd say, for me, being proactive and ensuring that council has information from residents on what their desires for a program is better than going after the fact and coming with a project that staff have developed and saying this is what we think we should do, and then go out to the public. And in terms of the representative sample, I think by getting out to the public first, we are getting those people who do care about compost and do care about the process. And if we waited and came up with our program and then went back out, we would get the reactionary piece of people who don't want changes, who don't want different augments to the system. But we're doing a proactive piece to help guide the future direction. But after we move forward, we're putting it to market. We're going to put this to tender. We're going to put it to the market to come up with ideas. We're going to list some of the qualifications that we need to hit, and we're going to let the market come up with their own ideas to do it. And for staff to be honest, we don't have the ability to come up with 100 or 10 different type of options that we can do for HRM. If we come up with a problem statement and give that to the market will take that and they will develop a solution for HRM, and then it's up to council and staff to vet that solution. And with everything on the table, that's part of the equation is if a vendor wants to come in and rehabilitate our 2 facilities, great. If it gives a good cost per ton and it meets all the environmental objectives that are set by council. If a vendor wants to come in and build a brand new facility, great. But we're going to be comparing them apples to apples on the cost per ton and the impact of the environment. But we will be going out once it's selected to do another round of consultations. I mean, not just because it's the right thing to do, but we need to hear from the residents too that what we have selected meets the goals and desires of the residents.
Yeah, I know that's the right answer that you're telling me, but it seems to me though you're the expert. You know, we hire staff in the public sphere. We hire people to give us advice, and what you're really doing is handing off that problem, if you like, to the public to give you advice. You know, it's a matter of how do you start the process, and it seems to me my tax dollars would be better spent listening to the advice of the experts than listening to the advice of my neighbor.
But don't you think there's some experts in this room?
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why.
Well, not that I'm paying you. I'm paying him to be an expert.
So with that, by going out and doing a proactive engagement, I believe we're going to save taxpayers money, because if we went out and we spent 6 months working with a consultant to develop what we believe as experts, and I'm not an expert, I'm going to tell you that now, I don't think there's any such thing as a solid waste expert. It's like being an expert in hockey. There's no such thing. Sidney Crosby isn't an expert in hockey. He's an expert centerman. He's amazing. Put him in nets, he's probably not an expert goalie. Same with a coach, right? So I view myself as the coach. I'm able to get the resources where I need, and I want to make sure they're deployed where it's most cost-effective and efficient to meet regional council's goals. And the last thing I want to do is go out and spend $300,000 on a consultant study, then go to regional council and then say, did you consult with anybody? No. Well, then go out and do it again. And then we're spending another $300,000 after we consulted. So it's getting out there, being proactive, listening to residents, developing a plan. Once the plan's done, we go back to residents to see what they think about that plan and move forward. So
It's very time consuming.
it is, but it's worth it. And if we're just trying to, if we wanted to run this as fast as we can without environmental considerations, without money on the table, without what residents feel, we could put together a plan within a couple months, no problem. But I want to make sure that residents have their voices heard, and I want to make sure that taxpayers' dollars are spent very wisely.
Missed having you around, Bob. I have to actually like what they're doing.
I'm retired, you see. I don't have to come to these things.
But
We
I
don't
do,
listen to them anymore.
I have a question not
never
about
did.
the participatory process, but actually it's the compost component. It was mentioned earlier about, you know, if a bin is contaminated, is there any sort of kind of filtering between what gets put in the bin and when it shows up at your facility to at least let some of the stuff that was okay to go through? Or is it once someone puts their, you know, dog waste in a plastic bag in a compost bin, the entire truck is contaminated?
So our enforcement of the contamination
Yeah.
piece is at the curb. So when
Okay.
our haulers go up and they lift the bin, if there's contaminants in there, they close the bin, they put a sticker on, they tag the address in a book so we know what's
Okay.
going on and whose material has been left behind. That's the process.
What if your neighbor puts it in your bin? That's
Well,
already
that's-
has happened.
Oh, I know. And if that happens and you know, give me a call and we'll try to sort it out.
Do you guys encourage any of residents to compost their own material? I know in some areas where it's a little bit more rural, or you lose a little bit more space, it's a lot more possible, you're not gonna make smells, but it seems kind of reduce a lot of your problems before they even start.
Yeah, and that's one of the programs that we push right now, the backyard composter. And we go out yearly, we were out last May, and we're gonna go again this May with the subsidized backyard composter program for residents who want to compost in their backyard. And that not only gives the benefits back to the residents because they can compost, but it reduces the cost for HRM at our facilities because the ton that doesn't go there is a ton that's saved, and it hits our bottom line for sure.
but it feeds the rats.
It might.
And Halifax has a lot of rats.
It might.
You mentioned the cost per ton for organics is 170. And how much do you sell it for?
We sell it for around $1 a ton.
$1.
Yeah. And the main reason behind that is because we don't have the back-end infrastructure right now to have it sit for a year and cure that extra time. So if we were to invest in that, it would be $20 to $30 a ton, plus or minus. And our ability to sell it to the landscaper for $1 has reduced our requirement to build that capacity out. That being said, it's something that we're looking at for the future piece too, as well as if residents do want that material back.
So if you had a choice as the accountant, would you do that extra step or not do that extra step?
So right now, I'm consulting with the general public to see if they want that material, and then we'll have to do a cost-benefit analysis on if residents want the material, is it better for us to retain it and then give it for free, or sell it for $2 a carload? We'll have to go through that process once we've identified that.
No, but if you did the extra processing yourself and then could sell it to whomever,
Yeah.
would that be more cost efficient, cost effective, or?
So part of that
Go
would
with
be,
what it is now.
yeah, so part of that would be, we don't think that we'll be able to get $30 or $40 a ton for that material. That being said, there's space and there's time, and we'd have to go site another facility to handle all of that material, and whereas the landscaping company already has that time and space, so they're able to do that. But it's a great question, and it's something that we'll be looking at during this process, is if residents overwhelmingly say, we want that material back, then we're gonna have to find a way to get that material back.
So I was gonna ask, for your 170 number, what's the actual net figure? But I guess it's plus or minus
It's,
dollars.
yeah.
Another question I had though is, you can obviously take into account the cost of transporting stuff around. So gas and vehicle costs and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But can you take and do you take into account CO2 emissions, that kind of stuff?
So we'll be looking at, with this program moving forward, not just, it'll be the triple bottom line piece. We're not just gonna look at the financial, we're gonna look at, see the carbon footprint, and with the anaerobic digestion piece, if we, with the new carbon tax, however that's gonna be rolled out either provincially or federally, that will give us the ability to maybe use that natural gas in our fleet, and then we don't have to pay the 7, 8, 10 cents carbon tax. So we'll be able to roll that through our system. But we're looking at the whole environmental piece, so that includes the CO2 for sure.
On the surface of it, to me, trucking around organics seems not like a good thing to do.
Yeah, and both of our facilities right now are within 10 kilometers of the center of generation, they're really close. And that gives us the ability to minimize that carbon footprint. But if we decide to site new facilities, let's say that's one of the options, 20, 30, 40 kilometers away, then we'll have to do that CO2 environmental impact on how does this impact the environment by sending it down 20, 30, 40 kilometers, or if we send it to another municipality that's 150 kilometers away. So we'll have to look at the whole piece together, not just the financial. We have to look at environmental 100%.
Coming from someone who lives in a high-rise, is that material processed differently than curbside? Because I know a lot of residents in my building, perhaps just from lack of understanding or knowledge being passed from, say, super to resident, is a lot of plastic bags are being used to hold onto their compost, go down, and then instead of just dumping it in and disposing of the bag,
whole
everything
bag.
goes in.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, I know that probably from a super standpoint, they could probably be speaking to residents and actually informing them, but is there a way on your end to process our compost differently than, say, curbside to handle that?
Not right now.
No.
And that's because we have two facilities
Right.
that both commercial and residential trucks deliver to. And that's one of the big challenges with high-rise multi-residential buildings is the plastic bag, you go down and it's throw the whole thing in. And that again goes to one of the questions we're asking residents. Do you value adding compostable plastic bags into the system? So we know that residents want that. That's another diversion piece to hopefully help out universities and all the apartment and condo owners out there to make it a little bit easier. That being said, with all that plastic, although it might be considered biodegradable, biodegradable doesn't mean it's compostable. It's different. And we have to take that into consideration with whatever future program we do roll forward. But our number one contaminant by far would be plastic and glass.
Maybe you could say that on the bins.
Yeah.
No plastic.
Well, I have been tempted to, mind you, being my environmental self, I was tempted to go put a poster on it, but then I didn't want to offend anyone as well. Like, I don't want to.
One of the things that we're working on right now in our public education department in solid waste is working with residents, working with the condo owners and the tenants and landlords and supers through a program called the Ambassador Program, and where we go out and we engage with the residents and we see if they want to put stickers like that on their bins, and we'll work with them and give them whatever tools that we have at our disposal to ensure that their building source separates a little bit more than they have in the past. And the biggest trick and the biggest challenge is the anonymity of I'm just going to drop and go, but when it's at your curbside at your house, it stays there. So that's the big challenge, and it's a education and communications challenge for sure.
Is there also requirements for the new buildings? Like, for example, in my building, we have a garbage chute, and so you throw your bag in and it goes right down. But is there any requirements now for when you're building a new condo building or a new apartment building to have, if you were to go to one of those, to have separate bins in there that go down chutes to the separate?
There's no requirement right now, and that's something else that we're looking at. But it's difficult to. It's a difficult venture, but it's definitely something that's on our radar. And some municipalities have that, and some municipalities have a chute that you can push buttons and it moves. So there's an arm that moves, and then it goes to the blue bin, compost, and garbage. So it's definitely something we are aware of and we're looking at right now.
Excuse me. I have a seasonal suggestion. Why don't you have a pumpkin smash after next Tuesday and see how many pumpkins people can put in your green bins as opposed to, otherwise putting them on the streets.
So one of the problems we have with the pumpkin smash piece is smash it on your driveway and then put it in the green bin.
Yeah, well,
Not-
we could have a party.
Yeah, but don't, so most of our breaks this time of year with our green bin comes from people just dropping it in the
Yeah.
green bin, and then the bottom kind of goes off on the carts, and then we're out replacing it. Yeah, have a big smash-a-thon and just put the pieces in the bin.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on our lake. It's getting built up and so forth. So what would be the cost of that, once that's filled to capacity compared with the compost? So do you save money through composting because you're managing what's going to landfill in our lake?
I'd say we do save money through compost because anecdotally in some of the reviews that we've had right now with siting a new landfill, if that's even a possibility right now, it would cost on approximately $100 million plus or minus to site a new landfill. The cost back in the early 90s was around $65–70 million, so just with some inflation we're looking at close to $70 million to build a similar system. So it's extremely expensive, and to put it in context, the amount of garbage that goes into that landfill from residents right now is around 50,000 tons. And the total amount of compost that goes in our system from residents and commercial sector is 53,000 tons. So we're shifting as much as we can over to recycling, and we're shifting as much as we can to compost because it's the right thing to do.
And then you have the third, so the bottom line, I'm thinking about, the triple bottom line. So $150 for garbage, then $170 for compost. That seems a little misleading then, because you're focusing on the exact dollar amount, but not incorporating that bigger cost of our overall disposal costs of having to create a new auto lake, for example.
Yeah, the costs that we articulate are actual costs right now, not a net present value of what something in the future might cost us now. And it's what we collect in terms of tax dollars to fund that expenditure right now. But it is something that's for top of mind for sure. There's the potential of having to site another landfill or even build a new, possibly waste-to-energy technology. We're not sure what's going to happen in 10 or 15 years or 20 years, and ultimately how quick the landfill will fill up, and if there will be a technology available that maybe you don't have the landfill anymore.
Yeah, the roadside facility there, I was talking about developing that, and that you're saying the development's getting, encroaching on that. So is that an issue?
The development's already in. We can't stop it, they're already built. And we do as much as we can to make sure that there's no adverse impacts with odor. Just as we do in our Halifax facility. We're on it. Odor is a big issue, making sure that it's managed appropriately and we don't get any complaints. One complaint is too many.
Yeah, so it's not even the process itself, but all of that, what's involved, even, planning, urban planning, and all of those factors. It's actually very complex. I think we're just about time. Any more questions?
Is it possible to have a tour of the compost facility?
It is, yeah. I'll give you my card, and if you want to come take a look, we can do a tour.
Have you ever thought about open doors?
For a compost facility, that's not a good idea.
Then jump in.
Why is that?
We keep the doors closed, so.
No, that's not what I mean.
I know.
Halifax
I know.
once a year.
I know, I'm just teasing you.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
You didn't sound right.
It's definitely something that we'll look at through this engagement piece, is allowing, maybe setting up a couple days for residents to come and see
Yeah.
what's done. Yeah. And not just at our facility, but at Otter Lake and at other operations.
I come.
Yeah, well, I know a lot of residents would, they're really interested in it. It's surprising, right, how many people are actively involved and really interested in garbage. And we've seen that with almost 1,000 survey results so far, and I know it might not seem like a lot, but in the world of public engagement, 1,000 is quite large.
Thank you.
You're welcome.